It is a frightful spectacle to see a great genius destroy himself. There's nothing more tragic in Greek literature. The entire mass of mediocrity, with its irresistible leaden weight, has succeeded in bringing down the highest to the same level as itself. Those words were used by Hegel to describe the fall of the most famous French emperor. On 18th of April 1814, the Treaty of Fontainebleau was signed. On insistence of Russian Tsar, Allied forces decided to give the emperor sovereignty over the island of Elba. He would also receive 2 million francs from French government annually. His family members would be given pensions, and his wife, Maria Louise, would be given Duchy of Parma, with reversion to her son. Now, from the perspectives of the Allies, the question might arise, why Elba? It was too close to Italy and France after all. Well, that's also the answer. While the French restored Bourbon dynasty, the Austrians, the Brits, had views like exile Napoleon to USA, island of St. Helena, or to some god knows where tiny island in British possession. The Russian Tsar wanted the European powers to always keep the possibility of re-emergence of Napoleon as a viable threat. While the Austrians keep their eyes on Elba in the west, Tsar can do his thing in Poland. Also, Tsar seemed not to like the Bourbons very much. Napoleon would still be a rich man. All they asked from him was to give up his empire, probably never to see his wife and son again, depending how you look at it, cruelest of all, giving up his ambition, same ambition that made him the emperor in the first place. The emperor did not take this lightly. He tried at least twice to poison himself, on April the 7th and on 9th of 12th to 13th of April. It was said that Napoleon carried a small bottle of poison around his neck since invasion of Russia. In the middle of night, 13th of April, his closest advisors and friends were summoned to his bed to bid farewell to their emperor. However, he began to vomit, and after a few hours he got better, so much that he was able to give a speech to the crowds the next day. The whole incident might have been made up by some overly imaginative people in the past, but nevertheless there are two theories why the poison did not work. One theory says he took too much poison at the same time and he vomited most of it out. And the second one says that he used the poison from the bottle around his neck that he has been carrying around for 2 years, and after all this time the poison lost its effectiveness. On April 20th, he was set off to Elba, soon followed by 600 guardsmen, who would be his to command on the island of Elba. Before that, he gave a speech in the courtyard of his chateau to those guardsmen he would not see again. On their journey, passing through Vienna, he was met with protesters. On his own admission, Napoleon, who had always feared and loathed the vulgar crowd, lost his nerves. He insisted on going in the sky after that, and refused to eat in local inns, for fear of being poisoned, ironically. He embarked on 28th of April on the British vessel HMS Undaunted. Since Elba was quarantined because of plague in Malta, the inhabitants of the island only found out about their new ruler a day before his arrival. The emperor stepped into this new relationship full of enthusiasm. And like with any relationship, the enthusiasm lasted for about 2 months. After initial road building and modernizing the island, the inhabitants did not care for tax increase, and the new Bourbon government had no intention of honoring paying up 2 million francs each year to Napoleon. He lost interest in his new kingdom. He was so bored that he started playing practical jokes on the people close to him. The emperor placed a fish in the pocket of his former general, Bertrand, and then asked him for a handkerchief. By the end of 1814, 4 million francs that Napoleon brought with him were gone. The Bourbons had no intention to pay up what was signed in the treaty, and when British Foreign Minister raised the issue of non-payment with Louis XVIII, he just suggested that it would probably be better to just move Napoleon to some tiny island in the Atlantic Ocean. As beautiful place as any, but the emperor had no intention of admiring Atlantic Ocean firsthand. His wife Maria Louise soon found herself enjoying company of the one-eyed Count Adam Albrecht. Maria Louise bore 2 children, first in 1815. Back in France, the Bourbons were having their own troubles. King Louis XVIII made Tsar Alexander furious when, in an open conversation, he mentioned to another ruler that he owes his restoration to the British. Also, the Tsar felt insulted when the king served himself first at a state banquet and refused to spend the night under the same roof. It was reported that Alexander remarked, "One would think that it was actually he who put me on my throne." France was filled with demobilized Napoleon veterans who still hold sympathies toward their old emperor. Soon they were joined by thousands of liberated prisoners of war returning home. Louis XVIII was in good relationships with the Catholic Church, which some perceived as a threat to revisiting the issue of confiscated church property. The peasants were afraid of reintroduction of feudal taxes. Urban workers were hit by unemployment as British goods came flooding in. They all remember Napoleon's cheap bread policies. Some historians even suggested that maybe some European powers were rooting for a Napoleonic comeback. That way, they can convince Russian Tsar that Elba is just too close to contain a person like Napoleon. Left to contemplate on his past life, with no money to rule his small kingdom, fearing of being perceived as coward by his veterans, with overall frustration growing bigger and bigger, the emperor decided to come home. 26th of February, Napoleon boarded the ship Partridge, and 2 days later landed in Europe, with 1,026 men, 40 horses and 2 cannons. He said he will arrive in Paris without a single shot fired. When faced with first real challenge, meeting Delessart's 5th Regiment, now loyal to the new king, he refused to engage them. He instead rode alone to meet them, with Marseillaise playing in the background. He dismounted his horse and gave a speech to the soldiers. He did bend the truth a little bit, saying he was summoned by Paris and supported by 3 European powers to return. Anyway, the soldiers soon started chanting, "Long live the Emperor." He rejoined his quest to Paris by many people, including his old marshal Ney, who was sent by the king to stop his march. Following Ney's example, the emperor was soon joined by many of his old officers. On the 19th to 20th March, a panicky Louis XVIII fled and took the road to Ghent. Napoleon made only one mistake in his return, but it was a costly one. He did not wait until Europe's ministers and sovereigns had dispersed after their conclave in Vienna before crossing from Elba. As soon as he got back from Elba, news was sent to Austrian consul at Genoa, who sent it to Vienna by a courier. Austrian Foreign Minister Metternich received news at 7 a.m. By 8:30, he was already in a meeting with the Emperor Francis of Austria, Prussian Kaiser, and Russian Tsar. In this way, war was declared in less than an hour. Talking about bad timing.